Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for the concluding video of my week's playthrough of the Stalingrad Airlift campaign from Down in Flames Wild Blue Yonder. Now the purpose of this video, now that all of the air missions have been flown for the week, is to really just sum up the achievements and losses of this week in this campaign and to just show how the air missions that have been flown influence the progress of the campaign marker. So when I began this playthrough, as you can see from the record sheet, 3 weeks worth of missions had already been flown, and this was the 4th week. So the previous successes and failures, primarily Soviet successes, I must say, had resulted in the campaign progress marker hovering around the near airfield's overrun box. Now, I've got to start with an apology here. In the last video, I forgot to remove the German fighters because of the loss of the near airfields. They should have performed a fuel disengagement on turn 4 because they lacked staging airfields, and for those particular missions they didn't actually have any drop tanks available. Now, I decided to leave it because, as fate would have it, the Soviet fighters wrought absolute havoc, as you saw, among the German transport planes. So much so that it seems the presence or absence of the Messerschmitts didn't really have that much of an impact anyway. So I will apologise for the error on my part, but I don't think it's worth changing anything because, as I said in my edit, I think the universe has pretty much balanced out the way things would have gone. So despite a very brave effort on the German part to try and rush a large amount of resupply into Stalingrad, the effort proved a costly failure. So let's have a look at how the 3 missions that I've recorded for this campaign have impacted on the progress marker. So if you remember, we began with an extra Soviet strike performed against ground targets. Now, this was tying in with the beginning of Operation Saturn. And despite a very, very vigorously prosecuted attempt, the Soviets didn't damage the German ground forces, so they got a 0. So if we refer to this little chart here, that is the mission campaign, excuse me, that is the mission campaign victory points chart. And this is what you use to gauge your success. So we had a score of 0 for that first Soviet strike. And because it was an Allied strike, that result of 0 equates to the marker moving 1 space to the right. Now that's encouraging for the Germans because potentially it might mean they regain those outer airfields, and that will greatly simplify the relief of Stalingrad. However, it doesn't end there because, of course, we had the second ground attack mission, the result of which was somewhat more successful for the Soviets. Now, a success level of 1 in the case of an Allied strike means that the marker does not move. It remains where it is. So still encouraging for the Germans. But then, of course, we come to that terrible supply mission. And the results of that in terms of supply points delivered was 0. Now that is very serious because if you look at the cargo delivered chart, cargo of 3 or less, basically that's the one we use because it's 0, means a shift 2 spaces to the left. So that is disastrous for the Germans because what it means is that rather than them regaining the peripheral airfields, 2 shifts to the left means that Soviet ground forces have actually overrun Potomnik. That's bad because it means the only airfield within Stalingrad that's still in German hands is Gumrak. Furthermore, in future turns, the loss of Potomnik means that there are additional transport landing hazards. Now, these are explained here. So Potomnik overrun It's the same as near airfields overrun, but also in snow or fog, a draw of a white card after an air transport mission equals destroyed in addition to the regular results. So resupplying Stalingrad has now become an even more hazardous proposition. So the Germans have their work cut out for them. And how have they done overall? Let's have a look at the air strengths for both sides. The German fighters throughout this campaign have done a superlative job of keeping their own losses low while inflicting very heavy losses upon their Soviet opposite numbers. In fact, the casualties among the Yak squadrons have been particularly high. And bearing in mind that this shaded reinforcement box is not available to the Soviets yet, the LA-5s have not been having a good time of it either. Losses among the IL-2s, the ground attack aircraft, have been moderate in relation to how many are available. But the casualties suffered by their fighters should be a source of great concern to the Soviets. With regards to the Luftwaffe, as I've said, their fighters are actually performing very strongly, but they have suffered very, very badly in terms of their logistical aircraft. So they are now, only 4 weeks into the campaign, scraping the bottom of the barrel with their available Junkers 52s. And they simply do not have that many alternate aircraft that can perform the job. So despite their continued victories in the air, the Germans are in real danger of losing the campaign through simple failure to provide logistical support for Stalingrad. In the next few turns, they will have to fight a very solid campaign just to keep Stalingrad supplied. And if I were a betting man, I'd say the odds are somewhat heavily stacked against them, because all the Soviets have to do is keep chipping away at those precious transport planes. I mean, almost heedless of their own losses. Unless, of course, it comes to a point where the Soviets have simply lost so many fighters that their resistance is rendered ineffective. And then it will simply become a race to the finish. But at the end of the day, with the fall of Pitomnik, I would say that things are looking very, very perilous for the Sixth Army indeed. And the longer they take to try and relieve Stalingrad, the worse the situation will get. But that, of course, is a question for, I won't say another series, because my intention was only ever to play through one full campaign turn of Stalingrad Airlift as a demonstration. And actually, in a way, I think playing to the great strengths of this game and its flair for dramatic tension, I'll leave that question open. Will the Germans be able to pull a logistical miracle out of their hats? Will the shattered Soviet fighter formations manage to maintain some kind of air superiority over the city of Stalingrad? Who knows? Who knows? But I hope that the series, which I'm concluding with this video, has given you a taste of how some of the more complex campaigns in Down in Flames, Wild Blue Yonder work, but more importantly, how they can spin a really dramatic and historically believable narrative. I find it really makes this game shine when you have a context for the missions that you're flying, and you have this sense that every mission is very important to the outcome of your campaign, and sometimes it does come right down to the wire, as in this case. So if you're a Down in Flames player but you haven't done the campaigns very much, or if you've not tried them tried them at all, I really would recommend it. Maybe start with some of the simpler ones like the Malta ones, and then work your way up to something like the Stalingrad Airlift, or maybe even the 8th Air Force bombing campaign if you want to try out the fuel limitation rules, because that's something I've not tried yet and I would like to give those a go. But I will wrap this up there. I hope that you have enjoyed this series and or found it useful. And I hope it's encouraged you, if you do own this game or have access to it, to break your boxes out, set up some planes and just have a darn good stoosh, because it is one of those rewarding games that is great fun. Not that difficult, he says, having forgotten a key rule in his previous video. And is just really, really engaging. And I find it's quite a good social game as well. Most games are good social games, but this one particularly is very good at what it does. So I'll just leave you with those thoughts and the encouragement to give this a whirl, particularly its excellent campaign system. And I'll just sign off by thanking you all who followed this series. It's been really good of you to watch these videos, and thank you so much for any comments you might wish to leave, any questions, any suggestions. All of these are welcome, and as always, I'll try to get back to you. A huge hello to my veterans. Thank you guys for staying the course. As always, it's wonderful to see you. I hope I didn't lose too many of my fellow pilots along the way. And if you're new to my channel, a very warm welcome to you. You're probably a bit bewildered if this is the first video of mine that you've ever seen, but if you're here for Down in Flames, please do check out the other videos I've made on this excellent game system. And if you're here for the wargaming in general, please feel free to meander through my channel. I hope there's something you like. And as always, to all of you, whatever's brought you here, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll look forward to seeing you in my next video. Take care. Bye.